Hello and welcome to the Quantum Bridge with myself, Casper, with my co-host Gary. Hi, mate. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
You've got rid of your cat, and mine is now deserting me. This is not boding well. They must know what we're going to talk about, but I'm not going to do a spoiler. So I'm going to pass across to you to welcome our guest and to get the show on the road.
Thank you very much, mate. So it's really a great pleasure to have a returning guest. So before I say what we're going to talk about, I'll welcome Alpine back to the show.
Good afternoon, guys. It's really nice to be back chatting with you again.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Thanks for joining.
Making a habit of it now.
Thanks for inviting me.
This is your hat trick, so
I might even make some sense this time with a bit of luck.
Wow. That's not what this channel is about.
Well, that's reassuring, actually, for someone like me. What tends to happen is that I get so many things that I want to say all at once that I just end up getting quite tongue-tied. And that doesn't really come across on X when I post on Twitter, you know, because I have the time to organise my thoughts and type them all out, which is why I'm a far better writer than a speaker.
And edit functions and delete.
Exactly. Oh God, honestly, I usually use all the chances to edit I need. You know, I can't just have something perfect and then post it and then leave it alone. It's like no, I've always got to just interfere with it here and there.
Right. Well, anyway, it's actually a post, a very well written post, you know, edited post that's kind of prompted this conversation today. I think the title of that was the Black Pill, the Prophets of Doom.
Yeah.
So, maybe before we go straight into that, let's sort of discuss what the Black Pill means, if you don't mind, Al.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
My mum will be watching this and she'll say, "He didn't say what the Black Pill was." I'll be like, "No, this is."
You've learned.
So let's just start with a brief, you know, what we mean by that, you know.
Sure. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, really, it relates to obviously the Matrix, in which, you know, you had the red pill and the blue pill option, which Neo was given, in which, you know, the red pill was where you get to see things for as they are, and the blue pill is where you go back to sleep and you re-enter the Matrix and you carry on with your sort of fake dreamy life or whatever. And then obviously since then things have progressed. And it's become like a cultural understanding that there are black-pilled people as well who just think that, you know, no matter how you cut things, no matter how you look at things, it's all going to, you know, SH1T. And you know, there's just no conceivable way for these black pillars and prophets of doom to actually conceive of an improving world, because they're just so gosh darned in awe about how muscular all the evil is, and it is, you know. Anyway, so yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's a trap, I guess, sometimes that but I suppose in all of our journeys we can get stuck in these things, you know. There's points when we go down rabbit holes and we spend however long looking at all that dark stuff, and I know some people do get stuck into that. For me, after a while, it's like I have to move on. You know, I can't stay in that thing. But I guess that's where this black pill term comes, is that people get stuck in the grotty, dark stuff. And I guess what we could discuss today is like what that is and maybe how we can work our way out of that. So,
well, my own personal way of doing so is I've never got it far away from my mind and from my heart and from my understanding that there's this concept called divine emergence, that non-being begets being. You know, it's the let there be light. You know, the very fact that we are all here and we were once not, or at least that's how we experience it, is kind of quite a compelling bit of evidence for me that something can come out of nothing, and that and you have this contrast, you know, between being and not being, and you have this contrast therefore between good and evil. Alan Watts talked about this a lot, you know, just the whole idea that you can't, you know, that you know, something actually implies its opposite. So the more muscular the evil appears to be, there's a part of me which just actually, it has the opposite effect on me. It makes me just inspired to imagine just how amazing the opposite it is, and that's the implication for me. It doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't matter what it does, it doesn't matter how much it shows off, and all the demons come out and go yabu, and you know, here we are, and come and have a go if you think you're hard enough, and all this kind of stuff. You know, it seems to have the opposite. I mean, I have my down moments as well, but basically it has the opposite effect with me, because you can't have up, you can't have down without up. You can't just say, well, I believe in down. Yeah, I believe in the direction of down, but up, don't give me all that. There is no evidence for up. I see no up. You know, it's like, well, all right, then why are you even using the word down then?
Yeah, because the evidence for up is the down.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. I'm a big fan of Alan Watts, not least because for at least some of his life while he was still in the UK, he lived in Chislehurst, and I lived there in southeast London for a while too. But yeah, I'm totally with you on this whole thing of this is a dualistic experience. Yeah. If you buy into this experience at all, and you don't actually have to be fully invested in the experience, even of yourself. But let's say that we are, and let's say we do have these down days, up days, and we know people who appear to be permanently in the down. My issue with a lot of those people is that actually they are also part of the down. So to identify with the negative is also to be with it in a type of marriage, however weird that might be, and to be getting some sort of nourishment, even if you're continually complaining and saying it's all going to hell, quite literally. There is this thing of you're placing yourself in a certain frequency where you have also become vampiric. So not only are you pointing out this terrible outcome, for example, or this space that you're inhabiting that's so awful, and that obviously this is where everybody else is going to end up. But at the same time, it does appear that it's very much an energetic drain on those around you. And those that aren't experiencing that space, let's say we three most of the time, let's hope, really don't want to engage, not just in the logic around, look, it must be like this and it must be terrible, but in the whole frequency aspect of that. Because when you're not in the frequency, actually that reality doesn't in some way exist. So I don't know how you feel about that load of blurb I've just shared, Al, but that's sort of where I come to this from.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not denying any of the evil. I think the point is, if we are to understand all these esoteric ideas such as within, so without, then the canvas of the reality that you're perceiving is in some way a reflection of what's inside. So if all you're seeing is things getting worse and worse, then kind of only really orienting yourself on the shadow and unhealed parts of yourself. And you know what I would do, what I would like to do, actually, I think I wrote this down. Actually, it's probably better if I read it out. What I'd like to do is to ask people, as this is one of my imagination exercises, really. You know, what I would like to do is to ask the black pillars or the doom, you know, the doom prophets, if you were the boss of the universe, if you were given a snapshot of the earth as it is right now, right today, exactly as it is, with all the players in place as they are, no matter what you think of them, but if suddenly if all the power of the universe was transferred to you, how would you render it good without wiping everything out and starting again? You know, if all you had to work with was what's already in the world, What would you do with the good actors, the bad actors, and what would be your narrative? How would you make them behave so that the world gets back on track without everyone freaking out? And I don't find it all that difficult to interpret events, especially in recent weeks, to interpret them in ways which I can take encouragement from. Now, people have, are perfectly entitled to, and it's just as valid. I want to make this absolutely clear. It's just as valid to, to declare, okay, well, these bad things are happening, because things are happening in that direction. There's a whole universe like that to explore. That's the implications of infinity. You can have that. You can have that apocalyptic scenario. You can wallow in it, but I just don't see the point. I just don't see how it's actually going to help render a better outcome on the canvas of your reality.
They just claim, maybe, Al, that they're realists and that we're living in this sort of false reality, and that they're seeing what's really, this is what's really happening, and therefore that we've got our heads in the sand, or we're in la la land and whatever.
I know that's a very disempowering attitude, isn't it? Yeah, maybe I think it's deep down. These people are die-hard reductionist materialists. They may well deny it, but they think no, that there's no relationship between my conscious awareness and my experiences, my qualia. There's no relationship between that and what's happening in the outside world, or if there is, it's a very tenuous one. And if that's your attitude, then I guess it is. So
then that's your experience.
Claim that power. If you want to claim that power, then by all means explore it. But that's what I mean when I say I don't really see the point. It's not attractive. It's not an attractive.
But the great thing about this whole reductionist sort of side of things and going towards the ultimate level of doom and gloom, which of course totally entitled to do that. I don't want to come on that ride, but if that's your gig, enjoy it. Is the ultimate point of that a bit like anything where you get to the absolute end of it, that really the continuum beyond that is the opposite. So it is just another way, actually, of getting to quote unquote enlightenment or a blissful state or whatever the other aspect is. So we might say, well, we're sort of here and we're moving closer to even more fun, happiness, downloads, angelic beings, all of that other stuff, right? That's intuition, all of the good stuff, and then all the powers that come with all that you can play with for a while before you get bored. And so we're sort of 3/4 of the way or a quarter of the way towards this utopian vision, or what we see as that, and they're sort of just a bit further away. And deciding to go this other route.
I like that. The way I like to look at it is we're on the way up and they're on the way down. They might have, if we're talking not just in this lifetime, if we're going up the fractal a little bit, suppose they've already sort of reached the heights several lifetimes ago, and where is there to go from the top except down? But you don't click your fingers and start right at the bottom again, or maybe it's not to everyone's tastes. Maybe the thing is to descend into the inferno, and we could just be meeting them on the way up.
Yeah. And this is why the whole thing of judgment, I mean, we might want to avoid that sort of frequency and that sort of experience, but to actually say that these people are wrong and bad, which I'm, massively guilty of doing, thinking about it in this moment, actually they are just, on a different elevator.
I think, like I said, there isn't really judgment per se. Maybe what I find frustrating now is the sort of the concern, or that they must pass that doom and gloom on. I must accept it, and it's kind of like, otherwise I'm wrong. And it does.
That's what gets me the hump. Yeah, they think they're doing us a favor. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's like, you must come down with me. I'm like, well, no. It's difficult once you step out of it, because I'm sure I've been in that. I don't know, maybe during certain events that we've been through, where I'm like, I've been there. Like, look, where are you dragging us? Well, you got to wake up. You got to, it's not till you can step out of that yourself and reflect back at where you were yourself, that then you can then see other people like, oh, this is the dark stuff. Just, it's okay. You go and do that, but you don't need to convince everybody else that is the reality. When there are other choices, and I think, like you mentioned, now it can be quite disempowering, I find, to sort of say, well, I don't have a say in this. It's just that, and it's kind of like, well, I don't believe so. But I think to dig myself out of those dark holes, I've had to become empowered, and that isn't. I have to say that wasn't easy.
Oh yeah, well, they do say misery loves company, don't they? And they also say my absolute favorite expression of these times is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So I mean, you can even see this. The reason why humankind is in the mess that it's in is not because the vast majority of people do want to deconstruct and iconoclastically tear down everything our ancestors have ever built. That's not how it happened. I mean, that's where we're at. But it's not because everyone sat bolt upright in bed one morning and thought this is going to be a great idea. Let's just tear down. Let's challenge the very like rules graven in nature themselves. Let's believe that we somehow know better than nature now. No, it's like it's just convincing people. It's weaponizing people's innate goodness, isn't it? And I try and remember that about the black pillars and the doom prophets, is that they mean well, but as you say, that they're actually doing more harm than good, in my opinion. I'm not invalidating that, even their perspective, or it has truth to it as well, just like ours does. And they might say, I imagine they might say things like, well, we'll see who's right, when we're all in some gulag with some Nazi stormtroopers fist up your what's it, then we'll see who was right. It's like, yeah, but that's not exactly, you can't know that whatever version of me that you're interacting with, you think you're interacting with in such a scenario, is where the focus point of my experience is. I mean, most of the people we deal with, are abstract ideas until we actually meet with them, and then obviously you realize that most people are that people are ensouled, and that we mustn't go down this road of solipsism or anything like that. But that doesn't mean to say that the people in your environment, it's a bit like, when you play these computer games where you have non-player characters, and then you also have characters who are actually players, but those players aren't necessarily always in it playing at the time, and they could just be hanging around otherwise, or just that the avatars might be just marching around and just doing things without any kind of free will or purpose to them. That's kind of how I see it when people are off screen, if you like, or away from keyboard, away from the life that or the experience you're experiencing, And I hope that doesn't sound too solipsistic, because when I'm actually talking to people, I do actually very much sense, the ensouled quality of people.
Well, that's right. I mean, a lot of this, I feel now, is to do with, for want of a better, none of these words are really very good, but let's say if I say frequency, it might get across sort of what I mean. And it's also this thing of, I think a lot of us have learned a level of detachment. I mean, again, I'm not going to big up myself in terms of I can be utterly detached from friends and family who share diametrically opposed viewpoints to me. That's not true. I'm not going to say that. But I think all of us have learned that if we want to have any sort of relationships with people who are not exactly on our trajectory or frequency, there is a level of allowing that needs to take place. And some of that is sort of coming into your own power, not in the sense of saying where I'm at is better than where you're at, but just understanding that it is different from where others are at. And this whole thing of, I know we've touched on the art of presence and so on before, but this thing of sort of being solid in yourself means you're less drawn into, basically, that there's less of this sort of dark power over you from those that would be harbingers of doom.
That's right. Yeah, they can't. Like I like to say, they can't flick. You know, you can't make shit stick to sunshine, basically. So if you're the sunshine, you try and make dirt stick to that.
Yeah. Exactly that.
I wonder, Al, do you think, and we're talking here about empowerment and things in the individual, but collectively, that it sort of belittles the progress that we have made over the last 4 or 5 years or whatever, that none of that seems to matter or is changing anything. It's kind of like, it's just well, it's still going on this road to hell or whatever, and it's like, it kind of can't, as in so much as
if hundreds of millions of people have woken up in the last 5 years alone, right? That's beyond doubt, or woken up, or are awakening, are starting to see beyond the veil. They're starting to acknowledge, even if it's only on the on the inside, and they're not confiding in it with anyone yet. They're starting to acknowledge that there's just astronomical levels of deception that have been going on. And as if that itself, even if you want to talk collectively and not just on an individual basis, the very idea that can't have actually made any difference whatsoever because the evil is so muscular, it's laughable, and even if, to be honest with you, even if some great debater were able to convince me that I'm just I've got my head in the clouds and I'm just thinking fanciful thoughts, then there's always there's still, I like to remind them then of the example Tolkien gave us in Lord of the Rings. It was only because of an act of selfishness that Sauron was defeated. Gollum if Gollum hadn't bit the ring off Frodo's finger, it doesn't matter how powerful and wise Gandalf was. It doesn't matter how muscular and strong all the champions of the various races ranged against Sauron were. They were going to lose, and they would have lost. And even Frodo, the purest of the hobbits, if you like, he didn't have the strength to drop the ring into the pit on his own. It took an act of selfishness, and that's what I mean when I say divine emergence. It's the one in the zero. It's the movement in the void. It's always going to happen. That's why it's kind of irrelevant to me just how impressed some people are with how everything is all co-opted and things like that. It doesn't really matter in the long run, because there's always going to be, it's going to just turn in on itself. We don't even need to witness that, do we? I mean, most of the hobbits, when they go, sorry, I just wanted to finish.
It's all right. Yeah, no, it's a great point.
Most of the hobbits, when they went back to the Shire, most of the hobbits were just sweeping their doorstep, and they were looking at these bedraggled hobbits, looking like they've been dragged through a hedge backwards, coming back, and they were just going, God, look at them, a bunch of like ruffians and ne'er-do-wells, and not having the slightest Scooby-Doo that these hobbits had just saved the world,
Yeah.
And how could you ever explain to them? How could they ever explain to them what they've been through? So it's not everyone that actually has to get to experience these things, and that's fine.
And it's also sort of, why would it matter? You see, because the thing of explaining your journey to somebody else, and I appreciate the metaphor there of the hobbits coming back from Mount Doom and all of this stuff, and I like the bit about that final bit of sort of a negative action leading to a positive outcome, which sort of comes back to this whole phrase of nothing can stop what's coming, or that sort of feeling as well, that yes, all those things can be happening, and all these terrible systems can be in place, and yes, there's absolutely only a 0.00, to come back your one and zeros, a 0.0001% chance that anything could affect this and create a positive outcome, but it's going to happen anyway.
And that's where we are, because that's where we're orienting our attention.
And we don't even need to know how or why. And we don't need to, after this is all done and we're brushing ourselves off, try to tell other people, only to the extent of there is an interesting narrative here, perhaps on a certain timeline, where you say, look, we're going to sort of make people aware of what happened. There'll be a level of disclosure about what we did or didn't do, what happened in the world or not, and all these things, just because you might not want to rush back into that same system again.
Yeah, that's why I think it's inevitable that sooner or later, and it could even be from this generation onwards, or it might not. I've got no particular charge on that, but sooner or later we're going to have to live massively expanded lifespans, just so that we don't keep going in this in this ridiculous little cycle and getting fooled every 2 or 3 generations.
Absolutely.
Because there is value to that, and there is growth to be gained from that, but not indefinitely. There comes a point where you have to actually orient yourself or align yourself with a different frequency or a different, you're just sort of, you're zoning into a sort of longer cycle, if you like.
Well, it's still an anchor of fear to some degree. This thing of going, well, we must make sure this never happens again. And it's been said throughout history for a whole host of reasons.
It will happen again.
A manifold of those being very reasonable reasons, more than reasonable, right? And coming out of terrible levels of pain and injustice and suffering and whatever. But unfortunately, what you then carry with you is also a level of negative frequency of fear relating to that. So to have true freedom, you sort of have to let go of that and go back to your original nature, really. And your original nature, of course, does leave, in terms of a dualistic universe, you're open to a type of attack. Well, yes, you're open to a type of attack.
It's inevitable, really. There's going to be on the other side of the of the great back tune, or whatever you want to call it. There's going to be, I imagine, when I try to raise the altitude of my thoughts, I imagine that the 180-degree opposite part of the cycle, where everyone is like a bodhisattva and things, and sooner or later they're going to invite the devil or the adversary or whatever you're going to call it in, simply because, well, like I say, they're at the top. Where else is there to go but down? What other experience is there to have? And that's why we could just be, there's nothing, I'm not invalidating the black pillars. I just don't think we're heading in the same direction. Just because our realities overlap or intersect temporarily, it doesn't mean to say that we're moving in the same direction of them. It doesn't mean that at all.
It's also, as you were pointing out, that we just don't, many of us don't require that route. That's it. It's as simple as that. They're welcome to have it. We don't want to go on it with them. Been there, done that. They may well have been there, done that before as well, but they've forgotten about it. Feels pretty raw to me. Don't want to do it. That's
some hobbits stayed in the Shire and just drank beer and smoked pipeweed.
And if you're talking about the NPCs, by the way, the non-player characters for this, that is a bit like that. That I believe that there may well, out of this incredible and tumultuous time, there might be a whole load of people. I don't think it'll be a massive percentage now, actually, but who pretty much didn't notice anything going on at all. And bless
I have them in my life,
Bless them.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, the time's flown by. I don't believe it. I mean, we've still got a little bit of time left, but maybe we sort of, if there's some sort of positive, encouraging insights, because I think going back to sort of what I mentioned, but it was a post that you did as well of this, that when people say that it's only going to be bad, they do overlook the impact that they've had, as in that they're trying to help, and they sort of they belittle that means nothing. You sort of think, well, it does. I mean, I mean, none of this exists. Us three sitting here didn't exist a few years back, and there's been loads of other. There's a whole wave of just regular people speaking out. It's become a sort of a media thing in itself, of just regular people talking about stuff that, I mean, we're not talking about football and whatever,
Have you heard of, I think it's called the Maharishi effect.
Okay.
Whereby I think it's that, there's been some I have only heard about it. I don't know how they arrived at this figure, but the idea that it only takes the square root of 1% of the population of humanity to actually affect permanent change and just create a 100th monkey syndrome in our experiences. And that figure would be somewhere between 8 and 9,000. Now that's all. I mean, at a certain level, and I mean, it's not unreasonable to suppose we're there or thereabouts or near as damn it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's massive, really. When I look at how much, like I say, the conversations that people are having, and just a few years back, well, like I say, pre-2020, it was just completely different, I think, and it's changed a lot, and that has to have a snowball type of effect. And it's quite good. I see people, they haven't really sort of given up. We've been through a lot, really, but everything that comes out, it gets called out quite quickly. Everyone's still on the case of like, no, and they're still pushing back. I think, wow, we've still got energy.
There's no other way. There's no other way to be. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like I'm tied up. Most of my energy still goes towards paying the bills. I haven't been able to exit the matrix yet. My higher self gives me the runaround all the time. I've clearly still got tons of work to do on that score. And I very much struggle with impatience because I know, and I mean know with a G in front of it, I know that I'm heading towards a more harmonious experience. I'm on my way up, because I choose for it to be so. And there are people who can disagree with me and they can say, no, you're not, you're just being very naive. So be it. They can think that, and indeed they will go forth into their future and they may encounter an NPC version of me that's having just as miserable a time as them, but that's not where the focus point of my I am will be. That'll just be their caricature of me, which they've invented in order to justify their need to experience the downhill slope. That's just my take on it, obviously.
Yeah. No, I feel that, and I'm in that impatient spot where I'm like, come on. I know me and Casper talk about this. We can you can feel it so close, but then you still have to go to work and just come on, back here, back doing
chop wood, carry water.
That's it. Back doing that. It's kind of like, I've got bigger things to do. Yeah, and it's kind of like, no, you've got to go and do that. Come on.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I've always, I know it was supposed to be some wise East Asian sage, possibly even Lao Tzu, who said "chop wood, carry water," and that's fine. I recognize the necessity of it. Of course, it's valid. We do indeed need to, we do need to engage with the basic things, but that's not all we're here for. And so, just to say that is it kind of gives me the hump a little bit as well. There has to be some, you can be more creative than that, and you can have an experience which is more creative than that. And if that type of creativity involves witnessing with your own witness of being, witnessing a reality in which there is a harmonious amalgamation of technology and nature, why not? That's another implication of infinity. There's absolutely no way that isn't a reality somewhere, and all we have to do is align with it.
That's it. There we go. It's a point to finish. I always make that point of aligning with where you want to be, not where you don't want to be. So I don't know, I've got a minute and a half. Do you have anything else you want to say, Casper, or just close us
No,
up?
just that, as ever, we will add any links and other details in the description section about Al. So if people want to interact with you or look at your material on X and other platforms and channels, they can do that. And to thank you again. And despite the fact you're a returning guest, you're very much welcome to be a returning guest. So I hope to see you
I'm
again
honored
in the future.
Thank you very much. And thanks for inviting me on the show again. I always really enjoy chatting with you.
Likewise. Yeah.
Take care, man.
Okay, you too.
Have
All the
a
best.
good one. Thank you very
You too.
much.